Hello! What's happening, True Living Tribe? My name is Michael Peluso, and I'm the founder of True Living, and it is a great honor to welcome you to the True Living Show. I am super excited to introduce you to one of the most incredible people in the world. He's to my right or to my left. Yeah, I think he's on my right side on your screen, and Anthony Dreammaker Doughty. Not only are you going to be able to spend some time with him, but we have a very special guest. I'm going to say one of the most talented individuals in a very sought after community. But before we introduce him, the great old Doug, Anthony, is there anything that you could? How can we possibly introduce the man that we're about to bring on here, outside of saying that he's extraordinarily patient?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I love the fact that you said the great old Doug, actually, because no, I'm just kidding. So Doug's my boy. I love Doug. Doug's a mentor of mine, one of my greatest mentors. I've been privileged to have a lot of incredible mentors throughout the years. He's definitely up top. And I don't know, how do you introduce him? I mean, he's a master in NLP. You know, he's one of the very few people on the planet that has a testimonial from Tony Robbins himself, you know, being by his side as a master trainer for 8 out of 10 years while he was with him. He's one of the only guys that also has a testimony of Richard Bandler, who founded NLP with John Gridler, and also John Lavelle too, who's the president of the NLP Society. So I mean, he is very few people in the world have it, right? And so he's my mentor, a dear friend, was my speaking partner there for quite some time as well too. I love him. To me, he's one of the best in the world at what he does. So really, no introduction needed.
Yeah, I mean, well, and I think, you know, one of the things that I think is important here because I don't know, I'm sure he wouldn't look, the work that Doug does impacts facilitate, like in other words, he teaches teachers who go out there and help hundreds of thousands of people, right? So we're talking about one of those people that's out there every day in the front line teaching the people that are impacting thousands of people. So it really, to me, Anthony, it is a really great honor to have him on the show. And I think, you know, beyond the accolades, because, you know, it's like, yeah, he's accomplished a lot, you know, worked with Tony Robbins, you know, and I'm sure hopefully he'll share with us a little bit about that. Sure. But I think that you know, when you're looking at the quality of somebody's life, you say, well, how many people is this person impacting? And one of the things that Doug has successfully done is create and formulate how to teach in a way in which it delivers an effective lesson, and then those people that learn from him go into the world. And if I remember correctly, haven't you had the opportunity to go through Doug's courses yourself?
I have. You know, there's so many. I quote Doug all the time. You know, from things like we'll learn like delete, distort, generalize of how we take information in, to nothing means anything but the meaning that you give it. Right. Yep. I say that all the time. And I got that from Doug. I love the guy. I met Doug right after a UPW event with a big group of Tony Robbins fans. We're ranting and raving about this guy, Doug O'Brien, coming in. This is back in the summer of 2015. And he became my dear friend and went through his course, got certified as a practitioner with him, and then had the privilege to work side by side with the man on stage. You know, he's a legend in his space, you know, and I love him. I really do. And I think he's one of the best, like I said, in the world at what he does. And he's impacted tens of thousands of people, and a lot of the, you know, that whole ripple effect. You know, a candle never loses any of its flame while lighting another candle. And that's who Doug O'Brien is.
Boom. And for those of you guys that are watching along right now, please comment. We'll be able to look at the comments. You know, I'll feed them to Doug as we go. And yeah, let's get the most out of our opportunity to spend a little bit of time with Doug. And without further ado, I'm going to pull the man up here right now. Doug, welcome to the show. What's happening?
That's great.
All right, there he is.
Thank you.
Yes.
Gosh, I really wish that was recorded. I would like to hear those accolades overnight. I play them every night before I go to bed.
Oh, man.
We'll send this to your wife. Don't worry.
Well, the good news is it's live and it is being recorded.
All right.
So Doug, you know, and I know that you've got a lot of projects going on, and we're going to get into some of them a little bit later on. I know that we're going to talk about secrets of success and communication. One of the things that I just want to acknowledge you for, which really changed my personal perspective on NLP, is how you've married and how important the state of being is along with the language that we use, right? So for those people who don't understand what NLP is, what your state of being has to do with language, why that matters in the context of communication, would you share a little bit of your knowledge with us?
Yes, I would.
Thank you.
only because you asked that. So neuro-linguistic programming, is something I started learning back in 1985, before some of you were born, I'm sure, or in Tony's case, before he was hatched. But just kidding.
Yeah, right, Tony.
Love this guy.
Before I was hatched.
But seriously, language does our thinking for us, and the way that we talk to ourselves influences us more than we think it does. The questions that we ask ourselves determines what we focus on, and that what we focus on is we create as our world. So it really is incredibly important to recognize what it is that we're saying to ourselves at any given time. It's not about just communication with other people, it's about communication with ourselves. And it is both. The way you express yourself to other people is going to affect them and how that comes across. Tony Robbins said it best, I think, a long time ago. He said, the quality of your communication is the quality of your life. And that's both intercommunication, interpersonal, and extrapersonal communication.
Yeah. Now, when you talk about interpersonal communication, I know we all have like a voice inside of our head. Yeah. So can you share a little bit more about intercommunication?
Well, that's the thing. NLP is like not just about the words that you say. Like if you say to yourself, like, I feel really powerful today. Those are nice words. But if you say it like, I feel really powerful today, it's not going to have that much of an impact on the way that you'd like it to be. If you said it, I feel really powerful today, it's not going to work at all. Although the words themselves are the same, but you have to actually match it with the intention, that the tonality, the inflections behind it, in order to make it actually communicate. So if you say, I'm going to feel really powerful today, you've got to say it with your body, you've got to say it with your tonality, and you say it with your intentionality. All those things have to come together with the words, so there's that congruent communication. When you can do that, then you're actually communicating in a powerful way.
Beautiful. And you see Tony Robbins, he's sitting there pumping him up to get himself up to get on stage. And is that what he's doing?
That's totally what he's doing. Yeah, totally. Tony is getting himself into a state so that when his communication comes across, it is, firing on all cylinders, that he's saying the words that he wants to say, he's saying it with the tonality he wants to say, he's saying with the physiology that he wants to say it.
Now, and maybe, so we have this state of being, like our internal experience, right? Or our internal energetic state. And then we have the language that we use. What comes first? Like, are we communicating our internal state? Can we communicate with our internal state to change things? How can we as listeners shift our internal state and really begin to understand? And I realize that this is a much larger conversation. I know that you've got courses on this kind of a thing. But can you give us any secrets?
Yeah, I think I can probably divulge one or two. One of the things that, people often talk about affirmations. You speak in affirmations like, I am powerful, or I am strong, or I am living in abundance, and I appreciate and accept the abundance of the world. Those are, again, really wonderful words. But I discovered a long time ago that sometimes, as well-intending as those affirmational statements might be, if you don't really believe them, it doesn't matter if you say them 1,000 times. It's not going to come across. Just as an example, a little story for you. A long time ago, I was told by a client, a coach of mine, a long time ago, that I needed to write a certain affirmational statement over and over and over again. And if I did it 10 times 10 times 10, that was the secret formula. That's 1,000 if you're not so great at math. 1,000 times, then it would, sink into my unconscious mind as being a true statement. I got somewhere around 540. I lost count, but as I was writing this thing over and over and over and over again, I was getting more and more angry. I was just like, this isn't true. This is stupid. And I finally just literally tore up this manual and just threw it away because it just was not working. But then I discovered something, again, credit where credit is due. I learned this from Tony Robbins, that it's not so much the statements that you're saying to yourself, but the question that you're asking yourself that really determines your focus. And again, I've learned a lot from a lot of different people, and I guess it's because we're talking about this particular thing that I learned from Tony that I'm bringing him up so much. I learned a lot from Richard Bandler as well, from Robert Dilts, from other hypnosis teachers like Stephen Gilligan, and going back far enough, I never met the man, but Milton Erickson was a huge influence on me. But what Tony taught is that the question that you ask yourself determines your focus, and your focus ultimately will determine what state you're in. So as an example, if you're in a situation and you think to yourself, what's good about this situation? What's your brain going to do? It's going to focus on what's good here. So instead of my writing all those affirmations like I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, when I really wasn't, if I ask myself, what am I happy about? Then your brain has to go like, I don't know, let's search, let's find out. And it starts seeking the answers to those questions. Your brain is a question answering device. So if you ask it good questions, you get good answers. If you ask it bad questions, you get bad answers. So if you're stuck in traffic and you go like, why does this always happen to me? Well, guess what? Your brain will come up with an answer to that. And it'll come up with answers that probably you've said to yourself over and over and over again over time. So you believe them. You've heard them since you were 10, right? Well, that's because you're stupid, because you don't plan ahead, because you're this, because you're that, because it gives you those answers that you've heard so many times. It's a question answering device. Your brain is a question answering device. If you ask it crappy questions, you get crappy answers. That's just as simple as that. And if you shift your question and ask a better question, you get better answers. So you're stuck in traffic. Instead of saying like, why does this always happen to me? You say something different. You say, what's good about this?
Mm-hmm.
How can I use this? How could this be a benefit for me today? You ask different questions. And if you have a sincere desire to know the answer, if you're not just, saying the words, but if you really want to know the answer, your brain will start searching. And everyone's had this experience where like you thought of a song, you heard a song maybe on the radio really fleetingly, and then you go like, oh, what is that song? Oh, what is that song? And then can't remember it. And then hours later, maybe you're doing your laundry or something, and then it pops in your brain. It's like, oh yeah, New York State of Mind, Billy Joel, right? It just sort of pops in your brain. You're like, oh. The only way that could happen is if you have a subconscious mind, right, or unconscious or other than conscious mind, that is still working on that problem that you posed to it, many hours ago. You're still seeking the answer to that question that you asked. So your brain does that. So if you ask better questions, you get better answers, and that creates a better life for you.
Beautiful. I like to think of it like Google. You have this blank space bar, and you get to put whatever it is that you want in there. So it's one of my favorite ways to think of it, Doug. And it's so true, right? I mean, it's almost like the quality of your life is what shows up in the search results of the questions that you ask. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, when it comes to really, so one of the things that I heard there is how important, like really, you can ask yourself a question and you could just be throwing words up in the air. Right? Or you could ask yourself a question with a sincere desire to ask yourself a question, almost like to believe in the question that you're asking. Is there any tips and tricks that you have to better believe, gain access to that component of us? Well,
to gain control of the component of the...
Yeah, like to go from just having a sloppy affirmation to really feeling the question that you're asking, so that the subconscious brain really gets into it.
Well, it's interesting. If we go back again to the difference between affirmations and the questions, one of the things, again, I learned from Tony Robbins years and years ago, was this idea of morning questions. You get into the habit of asking yourself questions every morning. And the more that you can make a ritual out of it and actually do it, you create the habit of it being a new way of looking at the world. Mm-hmm. So as an example, if I said to you, what are you happy about in your life right now? Michael, what are you happy about in your life right now?
Oh man, there's so much. But I'd say one of the things I'm most grateful for is definitely my team. I feel like I got to
just stop you there. I didn't ask you that question. I said, what are you happy about? What, not grateful. That's a different question.
All right. What am I happy about? I'm searching for houses, Doug. I'm searching for houses, so I'm happy about that.
You're happy that you're searching for houses?
Yeah, I'm happy that I'm buying a house.
Okay, you're happy that you're buying a house. Yeah. So why? So let me just stop you and just point out what I'm doing. I've asked you a question, and you've come up with an answer. So in a way, it's like if this is a computer screen, and I'm sure because most people are watching on some kind of device, you can imagine that there's a computer screen with an icon that's just clicked up there. So now we have an icon on the computer screen that says searching for a house.
Yes.
Right? Now, in psychotherapy, in traditional psychotherapy, what does a person do? They go into the psychotherapist's office, and the therapist says, "Oh, so what's the problem?" Right? And they go like, "Whoa, I got
yeah, here's the problems."
And it's, there it is. And they say, "So what's up with that? Tell me about that." And it's like, "Well, it's this." So you start analyzing the problem. Where did it come from? How long has it been that way? Do you think it's because of the way you were toilet trained as a child? You go back into these histories, and the more that you analyze this problem, the bigger it gets. And then it's like, so how does it make you feel? It's like,
like hell. like I feel like I've been expanding my problems this whole time.
So what we're doing here instead is the same process, but we're turning it on its head. So we're saying, what are you happy about? I'm happy about looking for houses. So now I'm going to ask you why. Why does that make you happy?
Oh, all right. Well, I'm all about adventure, man. And so I love the search. I love the process of searching for the houses. And I also love just living in, like being able to visualize myself in these different locations. Is it on the beach? Am I going to do a retreat center? Or, like, where am I going to go? So to me, there's a sense of freedom of living into something.
So how does that make you feel?
Makes me feel great.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that is I feel so much better than when I originally started that inquiry. I feel I can definitely experience the expansion of what makes me happy inside of that questioning, Doug. That beautiful. Thank you so much for that.
Well, that's fine, but again, the magic of that is that it puts it up on the screen as an icon. But then, just like psychotherapy did with the problem, we're saying, well, let's analyze this good thing, right? Let's analyze this blessing, this nice thing in our life. So why does it make you happy? The question why comes from analysis. We were analyzing this thing. And the more that you do that, the bigger it becomes, the more real it becomes, the more three-dimensional it becomes. And then when you ask, how does that make you feel? It's a very simple question. But to answer the question, what do you have to do? You actually have to
feel it.
Putting it on a new shirt or something. It's like, well, it feels kind of nice. Yeah, it feels good, right? You got to feel it to answer the question. So then you do it again. What else are you happy about? Why does that make you happy? How does that make you feel? What else are you happy about in your life? Why is that something that makes you happy? How does that make you feel? So you ask the questions 2 or 3 times, and you start ratcheting up those feelings of happiness.
Absolutely brilliant, Doug. Absolutely brilliant. And
I wish I could say I made it up. I didn't.
You're stacking.
Yeah. Yep. And then, one of the things that we talk about is the whole, the brain can't tell the difference between a vision and a memory. And then when you ask yourself, for me, when I'm in a peak state, I have this practice that we call scheduling the schedule. And you guys that have been repeat offenders of this show have heard it at some point. And the idea, Doug, is that you sit down, you schedule your life. You sit down, you try to enter into peak state by asking yourself a question. What am I grateful for? Super grateful for right now. How does that make me feel? Just like that, very similar. You enter that state of gratitude, and then you ask yourself, what do I want to accomplish this week? What do I want to, and then you begin to schedule your schedule. And one of the things that I would say that, right on, man. I would say that one of the things that I don't even know where to go with that, because I think that I don't know that people really can access how absolutely powerful that is until you begin to try it, But I just hope that everybody has written that down and sits down and sets up a time to just do it with some partners, do it with the friends. I know that you're going to be teaching. Now, is that something that you're going to be including in the courses that we're doing? I know that we're launching a mastermind with you and Len Davies covering. Yes. Now Len's a Hollywood producer, for those of you guys who don't know who he is, right? And you guys are going to be covering not just Hollywood production, but communication and showing up powerful on camera, and entering into the state before you show up on camera. I mean, is that some of the stuff that we can expect in the masterclass?
Absolutely not. No, we're not doing this one. No.
Nope. Damn. Oh, different secrets. You mean I got
not doing that. But what we are doing those much of what I learned from Tony Robbins comes from the field of NLP. When I first learned from Tony Robbins was an NLP trainer.
Mm-hmm.
He taught me NLP. I took an NLP certification course from Tony Robbins. I got certified in NLP from Tony Robbins. He wasn't the only one there. He wasn't the only trainer at the certification. He brought in Richard Bandler, who created NLP. He brought in Robert Dilts, who created Sleight of Mouth, which I wrote a book about. He got a lot of credit for, but Robert Dilts made it up. He brought in a guy named Dave Dobson, who was a hypnotherapist. I thought of him as an Ericksonian hypnotherapist because people are always talking about Erickson and how he told stories. And Erickson was this great storyteller, and you could, do this, sort of backdoor surreptitious, indirect suggestions through storytelling, and people would go into trance without even knowing that they were being put into a trance. And that's exactly what Dobson did. So I thought of him as being an example of Ericksonian hypnosis. He says, no, he developed it his own way separately. It was parallel to Erickson, but different from. So I studied with him quite a few times. So what I discovered, though, is that people who are really good at NLP were even good at this Ericksonian hypnosis. So I said, well, whether Dobson does it or not, I want to find out more about that. So I went back and I studied the roots of NLP. I went back and studied, where does this come from? Ericksonian hypnosis was a huge contributing factor, not the only one, but a huge contributing factor to the Neuro-Linguistic Programming. So the more I studied Ericksonian hypnosis, I realized that's the story that you tell, both, again, intrapersonally, extrapersonally, but the story that you tell, our brains respond to stories. So the story that you tell is your life. How you frame it, how you tell it, how you tell a story, the congruency with which you tell your story becomes your life. So you need to be able to tell your story well. So what we're doing, what Len and I are going to be doing, is to find the key concepts of both, persuasion technology, like from Sleight of Mouth. Sleight of Mouth is an NLP persuasion skill. It's a very good book about it, by the way. It's a persuasion skill using just, strictly speaking, NLP skills, but also tying that in with your story. And how do you tell your story in a convincing, congruent way, and then put that on camera? So Len is going to take the things that I do with storytelling and communication and find out how you can also communicate that in a visual medium like film or video.
Oh my gosh. And that is so key. A moment ago, one of the things, and Doug, that's awesome. And I'm super excited to be in the class. One of the things that I was kind of hit on before is the whole, the brain can't tell the difference between a vision and a memory. And so when there's that storytelling, you're living in that vision that's inside of your head when you're speaking, right? Like each one of you guys that's listening right now has some sort of vision that's going on with my words, right? If I were to say, so I'm sitting there and I'm speaking to my wife, and we're sitting there at the restaurant, and I look up at her and she's looking back at me, you kind of have this experience of that. So when one of the things that you kind of brought up in me, Doug, is that whole importance of, your brain is navigating based off of the visions and the memories. And so to be able to ask yourself a question, have a new novel vision to aim towards, is such a key in the quality of your life. And now to be able to create a vision inside of other people's, as you're sharing your story, so that they can not only be enrolled in what you're doing and you could translate what you want to, but so that they can walk away with an improved quality of life. I think that that's an extraordinarily valuable gift to be able to give yourself and to be able to give the people around you, whether that's your children and you're telling them a bedtime story, or you're in front of a camera and you're speaking to thousands of people.
Right. Yeah. And the trick, I think Len is the expert on the film aspect of it, but I think that the trick to doing a valuable film in front of 1,000 people is to say, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. And then maybe, I'm talking to whoever you are. And maybe it's a fictional, avatar that I believe I'm talking to this constructed figure, but right now I'm talking to you. Right. So I'm answering your questions. We're having a conversation, and hopefully it comes across in a way that other people can appreciate and tag into. But it's a conversation. So when people think I'm going to be talking to 1,000 people, that's kind of overwhelming. We need to keep our stories personal. When you're writing story, even when you're writing a story on, Facebook or whatever, you're talking to one person. You're communicating to your brother, or you're communicating to your wife, or you're communicating to your girlfriend. You're communicating to one person. And the more that you can really do that, so you tell that story to a person, one listener, the more it gets kind of focused. And that's a big trick to effective storytelling. Another thing we noticed about effective storytelling is that there's usually like a structure to it. There's like a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's an arc to a story. And a lot of times people leave that out, and they think that when they tell the story of their life, they need to go through all the details. You know, I was born, I went to kindergarten, I went to first grade and second grade, and then it's like a detailed step-by-step, resume. We don't care about your resume. We need a story, right? We need a story. This happened, and then this happened, and this conflict arose, and I don't know if I'm going to make it. And we figured out a way, and we got through to the end. So there's got to be that kind of dramatic arc to a story in order to really grab a person's attention. If you can do that, you're going to go a long way towards the communication that you're trying to get across.
Excellent. And you'll be sharing that framework with Len. I think it's October 1st is the big release, right?
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, Len is a brilliant guy. I mean, Tony can tell us more about Len, but my God, he's been around for a long time. He's been in the movie business for 50 years. And he's only 55 or something.
Yeah, 51 years old. It's amazing.
51 years old.
One thing that I just wanted to say is that, not everyone's going to want to necessarily break into Hollywood or be a Hollywood, actress or actor or whoever, but one of the things that I've attended of yours, Doug, that I absolutely loved with you and Nick was Stories of the Outside In, right? Where you tell, you were just sharing how you tell these stories. And I see this almost as like an amalgam of that with Len. And really, I think the takeaway is that, we have a lot of people, right, now in the world of social that want to really be a brand ambassador of what their brand is. And, they don't necessarily know how to articulate that into storytelling. And so this will not just be for the person that wants to, break into Hollywood or an actor or actress, but also how to be able to tell stories in their everyday life, but also how to quote unquote social sell and build their brand too, and be able to build content and get their message out there and so forth as well too.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And I think one of the added perks outside of it, Len being somebody who's been in the industry for 50 years and an avid member in the tribe, for those of you guys that have been on our Wednesday night communication calls, he's there. He shows up every time. He's not in the middle of a big shoot. One of the things that I think that's going to be profound is Len's insight into having worked with major Hollywood producers, being a director, but having, when you're, if you think about what we're talking about right here, right? You have somebody who's able to give you insight into how to share your story, how to create it vividly. And then you've got somebody who's used to capturing people's stories and turning it into capturing it into a screen. If you think about that, that really is a complete package. Wow. I love it, man. I am so ready for this.
If I could just add this is really exciting with Len. Len doesn't always talk about this, but Len, he's not just an award-winning producer, award-winning director. He's not only been, doing this since he was -5 years old, doing it for 50 plus years. He literally was so instrumental in many of the WWE characters as well too. Many of them. The current WWE champion, Drew McIntyre, that beat Brock Lesnar. And if you don't know who Brock Lesnar is, Google him. He's a 300-pound, 6'5" alpha male that used to throw Dwayne Johnson around like he was a rag doll, right? And this man beat him. Len helped him to actually some of the skills on the mic and things like that as well. And one of the top WWE stars, Sheamus, Len literally taught him how to cut interviews, right? And how to be in front of the camera. And Sheamus was apparently horrible before Len worked with him and everything. And a month or two later, he was in WWE cutting phenomenal promos. So there's a lot of really cool experience here, that's going to be, teaching people how to be able to, build a brand themselves, right? And address the public.
Anthony, I think it was on the interview that we did with Len a couple of weeks ago or months ago or whenever that was. Len was sharing about, and maybe it was a private conversation, he was sharing about how he kind of was part of one of the people that birthed the whole music with the wrestlers coming out and it being like a show to build the excitement that's there, So talk about somebody who's instrumental in how we perceive things. You know, I mean, honestly, Doug, I am super excited to be able to check out your masterclass. And it's really an honor to be able to have it here with the True Living community. You know, thank you for that opportunity.
The pleasure is all mine, and the honor is mine as well. I'm so grateful to Tony and for you to be able to invite me to do this, because it's so exciting working with Len. It's such a great coming together of these two skill sets, because storytelling is great. I mean, it's been around since there have been people, right? Yeah. Since, you know, I'm living upstate right now where it's really dark outside right now. But back in the day, you know, when we were hunters and gatherers, we'd build the bonfire. Now would be the time we'd be sitting around the fire. And what would we do? We wouldn't be watching TV. We wouldn't be checking our phones. We'd be telling stories. Right. And there's a whole tradition of the storyteller brings the traditions of the tribe forward through, you know, it's important verbal mental history. So it's really the way our brains are set up. We think this way. We communicate this way. We store knowledge this way. And now, you know, it's human. It's just in our bones. It's in our DNA. But it is also now streaming, and we also have to be able to create this. If we want to be a influencer, if we want to be a person who makes content that people want to watch, you got to have the story. It's the story is what hooks people. And so when you take that sort of ancient tradition and the Ericksonian language patterns, the hypnosis that goes into there, and the NLP kind of persuasion stuff, put all that in there in a simple enough form that it can be in just a couple of minutes on video. It's a powerful combination. So I'm really excited to have this opportunity to work with Len to bring that to fruition. It's really exciting.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
I'm like salivating, you know, like, all right. Okay, great. Anthony, Doug, I mean, I don't know where to go from here. I'm just I'm waiting for the play button on the master class. All right. So Doug, can you give us a little better? So outside of the master class, I know. Can you give us an idea of some of the projects that you're working on, some of the things that you're looking forward to?
Sure.
Can you tell us a story?
Story from the outside.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story. Back in 1985, I was a rock and roll musician. I was living in New York City as a rock and roll musician. I moved to New York City in 1980, and the first band I got hooked up with, I was a keyboard player. There's a piano right there. I don't know if you can see it, but I was a keyboard player, and the first band I got hooked up with in New York City was a punk rock band, 1981, called Ultra Violence. It was a punk rock band. We played it in the East Village of New York City. You can probably imagine.
I can see that. Yeah, you're like the original Green Day.
Mohawk, you know. Yeah, right.
I'm intimidated right now.
Doug, I was in a punk rock band. I was the drummer of a punk rock band.
Really? Are you?
Oh yeah, man.
All right.
You know,
well, drummer in a punk rock band makes sense. A keyboard player in a punk rock band is not that common. Nevertheless, I was also, by the way, a classically trained pianist. I played Carnegie Hall the year before, in 1980. That's cool. Kind of interesting. Anyway, by 1985, you know, the band was doing okay. We were playing places like, you know, CBGB's and Studio 54. You know, we were doing okay, but you know, we never quite made a record contract or anything, so we didn't get to that level. But anyway, I got involved with Tony Robbins because a friend had gone to this event. Now, keep in mind, this is 1985. Tony did not have any books out. Nobody knew who this guy was. He was like 24 years old at the time. And literally, why would anyone want to go walk across hot burning coals, you know, for what purpose? You know, picnics, hills, you know, what is this for, right? And he was marketing it at places like the New Life Expo and stuff. And it was very much a forum or an est kind of format that the marketing was basically, if you went to it and liked it, then it was your job to get your family and friends to come next time. It was kind of like bring your family and friends. So that's what happened to me. A friend of mine went and then said, "Oh, you're coming next time." So I was dragged to this event. To my surprise, it was really cool. This NLP stuff Tony was talking about was fascinating. And I really sort of got involved in it. And I got involved so much that I sort of worked my way up through the staff. And I became ultimately the center manager for the New York City office. Tony had an office in New York City, and I was his employee to work for him to put on these seminars in New York. So my job was to put on these seminars in New York. And the first time I was the guy in charge, it didn't go so good. Yeah, it didn't go so well. I had maybe 300 people. If you've ever been to a Tony Robbins event in the past 10 years, 20 years even, 300 people at a Tony Robbins event. Imagine that. So,
that's the first row. That's the first row.
it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad for the late 80s, but trust me, it wasn't good either. And part of the reason was my belief system was that, this NLP stuff, this walking on fire thing, it was fine for people like me who went to the New Life Expo, who was a punk rock musician in Eastville. It was fine for unusual types of people, but for normal people, for chiropractors, for doctors, for lawyers, for real estate agents, not normal people, they wouldn't want that. But then I had a revelation. I had a little awakening of my mind that I said, everybody has a brain, and NLP is basically a owner's manual for the brain, and everybody could get better at what they do. A chiropractor could be a better chiropractor. A real estate agent could be a better real estate agent. An athlete could be a better athlete. So suddenly I thought, oh my God, this is going to be good for anybody, and everybody should learn how to do this. And suddenly, it wasn't like I'd learned some new techniques or anything like that. I was using the same, sales model. I was using the same techniques, but suddenly, because I had that shift of belief about what was behind all that, we went from like one of the smaller groups to one of the largest groups you ever had at that time. We had like 750 people, which I know doesn't sound like a lot to you from your perspective, but at that time, it was a lot. It was the most he'd had in New York City ever at that point. And I remember when he walked into the room, he was like, "What did you do?" It was really cool. It was a really cool moment. And the answer is, I didn't do really anything different than I had been doing, except that I believed differently. And so the communication came across differently. People have to have that congruency. So that's where it comes back to that idea of, your inner dialogue, your inner talk, matching your external talk. You got to have that congruency of communication, a congruency of belief in order to get the message across.
Beautiful.
It's very, very true. One thing that, Doug, I speak about this when I can to give you credit. It means a lot. I really feel like you were definitely at one point a savior of mine. Most of you guys know I was in a bad car accident 3 years ago, and I was in the hospital. And I was pretty bad with a serious infection from the hospital, and then the car accident too. I was in with C. diff at the time, all these antibiotics, this and that, and I didn't know if I was going to make it through the night. And I prayed, of course. My wife was by my side, but the one person I called was Doug O'Brien. And Doug, I remember him saying something. I was so out of it. I don't remember all the ins and outs, and I'm still healing. And Mike has been tremendous with. When we're off the phone today, he's going to do neurosomatic stuff and everything with me too. He's phenomenal. Every Monday we work together. But I remember, you were the catalyst that night. You were telling me to it was like the color blue and focus on blue. And you did some hypnotic, Ericksonian type thing with me. And I woke up the next day, right? I woke up the next day and I got through it. And I was in so much pain that I don't know where I would be without you, and you were the start of that, getting me through that. And I'm so grateful to God for you. And then even a few months later, when I was really bad, you saw me in one of your offices in Brooklyn, and drove up there, and it was pretty bad. And you helped me with some havening, some techniques, and of course NLP, and then other people like Mike, of course, have worked with me since. But there's so much power in what you do. It's unquestionable. It is. It's a science. It really, really is. How our, neurosynapses and the brain works, and the neurology, and how it all ties together. It's not just hocus pocus stuff. There's a science there. And, I always encourage everybody to really dig deep into this and dig deep into Doug's work, and, check out, Sleight of Mouth, because that book's amazing. It's phenomenal. And, at the end of the day is when you apply it, and I always say this, at the end of the day, knowledge is not power. Even accurate knowledge is not power, right? But applied accurate knowledge is power, right? And so if you learn it, and you know it's accurate, which it is, right? And then you actually apply it. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where the magic happens.
One of the things I would like to add to that is when you think about, so we're, neuro-linguistic, right? We have that language component of things. So really it's a conversation for transformation. I like to equate it when I'm explaining it to people, like, there's a conversation in which your brain gets the joke of how it's braining. And once the brain gets the joke, it's almost like you're giving the brain a conversation so that it discovers its own owner's manual, its own operating system. And it's profound. It's wild. I know people have changed it. You become aware of your dreaming, you can navigate through it at times. You can change your state of being. You really become fully responsible for the way in which you show up to yourself and to others. And I think that what would the world look like if everybody had that skill? Would we spend as much time arguing about semantical stuff that, versus things that we can't change versus changing our internal state and living in a beautiful natural reality? And Doug, I want to acknowledge you for being out there every day and doing that work. Like when we brought you on in the beginning, it isn't just the individuals, it's that the individuals that you train go out into the world and transform other people's lives and other people's lives, and the compound effect is extraordinarily profound. And even just understanding your experience there managing Tony Robbins, and that whole managing the events, that's a profound story. So let me ask you, how did that continue? So what what wound up? So then what?
Well, and then, well, again, remember how I said, people are tempted sometimes to do a chronology, and that's not really a story. It's just kind of. So then a lot of stuff happened.
and then you taught the True Living Masterclass with Len Davies. That was the answer I was looking for.
That was it.
So, all right, guys.
Nothing in between.
Oh man. So I love all the love that we've seen here in the chats. Wow, this is helping me so much. I'm going to show some of these steps. Wow, this is helping me so much. Your brain is a question answering device. Yes. Love it. Yes, I love asking my brain questions to answer. For instance, when I'm lacking confidence, I ask myself, why am I so amazing? I love that. We're getting all kinds of stuff. Oh, this is brilliant. Let's see this. Oh, this is brilliant. I'm going to write that on my mirror. Woo! Love it. That. Oh, man. Yes, let's see. Yeah, I always tell people who want to start making videos to pretend they're sending the video to their best friend only. Don't worry about everyone else. Make it appropriate, but they'll keep watching it as long as it sounds authentic and passionate. Doug, one of the things I would never forget is when I first started shooting videos, I was going through this funnel building program, and they said, Mike, we need you to shoot a video. Here's a rough script. I shot that video over 5,000 times until I finally gave up and said, I just got to speak. I'm just going to actually speak to one person. And it shifted. So I'm super excited to have the opportunity to sit in your masterclass. It is going to be coming out October 1st. And we have a registration link. I actually do not have a registration link tonight. But here's what people can do. If you comment and you say, I am in, I will make sure that you are registered. We'll give you all the details. Someone will reach out to you. So just comment, be like, yo, I'm in. And we will make sure that you get all the information that you need so that you could begin to create your story, author your life, and show up powerfully in front of the camera with Len Davies and Doug O'Brien. Guys, do you have anything that you want to share in closing here?
I'd like to ask Doug a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, one of the things we did at Carrie's event, hey, Carrie, if you're watching, Carrie Zumas, was that I thought it was fantastic. I still use it to this day. I tell a lot of my business friends and some of my partners. I've said it to Len before. I love when you talked about, and I forget exactly the terminology you used, but basically what Walt Disney used to do in regards to the decision-making process, like the critic, and the dream room and the critic room, or can you touch on that? Because I think that's so cool, because I know that we come up with an idea and then we're like, no, it won't work, and here's why. And then we come up with an idea and we just like beat ourselves up all day long. It's like the proverbial angel and the devil on the shoulder.
I can happily talk about it briefly, but I will say, I have this thing called the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast and the essentialcoachingskills.com, where I spent an entire month. I spent 4 sessions, like 1 session a week, teaching that process. So it's a little bit more involved than maybe I can talk about in the
wait. But Doug,
Right.
I haven't told everybody this yet. We have you and Len appearing here in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to share more on that. I think we've got to give people a cliffhanger on this one.
Okay, cool.
All right.
So
Let me just say this.
Yeah,
Really cool
Anthony's gonna be.
One thing that's really cool about Walt Disney is, can you guys still hear me? Shut up.
No.
I'm talking now. I'm talking here. Shut up.
Sorry, Christopher Walken.
One thing that's cool about Walt Disney did not actually get cryogenically frozen. That's a myth. He's not cryogenically frozen. But what's interesting is he did actually model the structure of Walt Disney Studios after his structure of thinking. So in a way, his brain is still alive in Walt Disney Studios, which is why 40 years, how many years has he been dead? 40, 50 years since he passed? There are still Walt Disney movies coming out that as soon as you see them, you can go like, oh, there's a Disney movie. Yeah, I recognize it, right? He's still got his signature because he's structured the studios on the way he thought. And yes, Anthony, that is the structure I'll be telling you guys about in 2 weeks.
Very cool.
Yes,
Very cool.
yes.
Poor people have to wait 2 weeks, Mike. Good cop, bad cop.
I know.
I'm the good cop, guys. I'm the dream maker.
Okay, guys, let's see here. We got everybody there. Thank you for tuning in here. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Tony. You guys are absolutely amazing. It is an honor to be part of such an amazing tribe of people out there changing the world. It is your community. Guys, when you owe it to yourself to register for Doug's masterclass. Len's masterclass. Drop in a comment below. Say, I am in. We will reach out to you with the details. And make sure that you sign up for our Facebook group, True Living Entrepreneurs. Nope, it is True Living Tribe now. No longer True Living Entrepreneurs. True Living Tribe. Go to the Facebook group, sign up. We're going to be going live like this all the time. Share it with your friends because we're out there to make a difference in your life, in your business. We love you guys. Have a great night. Thank you, guys. Bye for now. Bye.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.